All right.
Never been used to it, yeah.
So we are on Hey Omid Al, Hey Omid Al, Hey
Five.
Omid Aleph, right?
Correct.
Upamim Shem Ptur Mizeh Umizeh. Sometimes, well, let's fill.
Oh, you did finish. You did, it's for a dollar up at base.
Oh, Dalet Amud Beis. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ma Ovid Lo Reb Shimon ben Lakish. How can Reish? Oh yeah, so Reb Chizkiya Omer Reb Shimon Shol. Me'ata in Mekabel Meim Lamas Hamayim U'Lechom Sayeru Migdalis Al Shem Shem Lachem Ein Chelek. We don't accept money from the non-Jews to build the walls and to build the top. Now, Masnisan Reb Meir. What is the reason for Reb Meir? Reb Meir Kashem Sheshiklu Torah Kach Kalbonei Torah. Just as one, there's a chiyuv d'oraisa to give the shekel, so there's also a chiyuv d'oraisa for the kalboin. K'sar Reb Meir b'noisen shkolu sholem shuchai b'kalboin. That's why if you give a whole shekel, but you're contributing for yourself and for somebody else, you're still obligated to give the kalboin for each half. That's why you have to give two. Dam Reb Meir, kimin maber shel eish. Hotze Kodesh Baruch Hu mitachas kisei kvodo. Ve'ero Moshe. V'amer lo ze yitnu. Rashi there brings this chazal that Moshe was miskasha. Moshe was he had a problem with the machzis hashekel. And he showed him a matbea shel eish, a coin of fire, because and zeyitnu, you have to give it like this, and therefore sometimes a coin will be bigger, sometimes it will be smaller. So to make it uniform, you have to add that kalboin. Nosen sel litol shekel. So if let's say you gave a whole. Remember, a sela is made up of two machzis shekel. Half a sela is a machzis shekel. So noisen sela litol shekel. So if you give one sela for two, chayv shnei kolboinos. And you have to, like we said before, the opinion of Reb Meir was you have to give two kolboinos. Amr Reb Elazar Reb Meir the tiny elu chayvim b'kalbois kalbon echad. Reb Meir Amr shnei kolboinos. That goes along with the Mishnah that said Reb Meir says whenever you give for two people, you have to give two. However, Umar Rav, Divrei Kolhi, that even everybody holds the same. The Amar of Meir, Echad shekel shu noisen, ve'echad shekel shu noitel. When he gives the full shekel, he has to give a kalbon. When he gets the change back, he gets another one. Ve'echad l'divrei Torah. And the Rav holds that there's a third kalbon. And that's the one, because the Torah says you have to make sure that all the coins are similar, because some will be weighing more, some will weigh less. So to even it out, you give the extra kalbon. That you give three kalbonos, like we just said, echad shekel shu noisen, echad shekel shu noitel. That's for the change. Ve'echad l'dvar Torah. Okay. Then we went through Ha'achin v'ashutofim shechayavim b'kalboin. Partners who give 1 shekel for the both of them, they do have to give a kalboin, but p'tur meiser behema. They are potter from a meiser behema because of the din that it's got to be owned by an individual person. We're talking about brothers that divided and then came back together as one owner. In that case, chayam meiser behema u'p'tur not kalboin, because it would be like one household, where you'd have to give the meiser behema, but you'd potter from the kalboin. That's b'shaloi chilka when they didn't divide it at all. Amr Reb Elazar, bein shechalku gdim k'neged yoshim u'yoshim k'neged gdim. For example, this is only, let's say one brother said, I'll take all the goats, and the other one says, you take all the little goats. I mean, they didn't divide everything equally. For example, let's say there were 50 goats. One brother took 25, the other brother took 25. And if there were 50 sheep, one brother 25. So hu chelko mishar rishona. That's considered that they're not doing a transaction. Therefore, the estate is viewed as if it's one thing, like it was in the beginning. However, Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with Rabbi Lezer. No matter how you divide it up, afilu chalka gdim neged gdim, yoshim neged yoshim, kilaku chosein. When they inherited from the father, then they sort of joined together. They're considered as if they purchased. Each brother sold something from him to him and him to him, so they're considered like purchasers. Therefore, p'tur min ha'maiser, and therefore, just like the purchasers put from maiser behema, only the owner who originally owned the animals is chayiv. It's the same thing here. If you purchase something, or it was given to you by matana, put from maiser behema. Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yirmiyah boy. Rabbi Chia asked the following question: V'lama less non amrin pamim shen chayim b'zeh v'zeh u'pamim shen p'tur mizeh u'mizeh. We said that sometimes they're going to be obligated in Meiser Behema and the Kalboin, and sometimes they're going to be parted from that. Now, when is the case? Chalku anachasim, for example, let's say they divided the assets, but not the animals. The lo chalkin behema, so chayavim b'zeh b'zeh. They'd be chayav in Meiser Behema because they're still considered, they're no purchasers yet because they didn't divide that. And they'd be chayav in the Kalboin because they already divided that. But if chalku behema v'lo chalku anachasim, they divided the behema, so they're considered like purchasers. And they still own the money. So if an estate is unified, as if the father was still alive, a father gives the machzor shekel for all his children without a kalboin. So since they didn't divide the money yet, it's considered as if it still belongs to the estate. And therefore, they would be parted from the kalboin as well. So that's the example when they were parted from both. That's why it says b'shaloi sabehema rov. So if you value the total estate, and if the estate if the monetary value of the estate in animals is above the majority, that's the din. That's if it's not rov. But if the animals are rov, so they are the primary assets. So there we don't look at whether they divided the money or not. We look at whether the animals were divided. Rav Avid Amar Rav Shimi boy. Rav Avid asked the following question. Because regarding Meiser Behema, you made them as like one estate, you parted them from Kalboin? Merle, he answered, Loi Shanyahi Shunoisin Selacha Shlema. When one of the brothers gives a whole, not a machzis shekel, but the whole shekel on behalf of two brothers, nothing's been divided, so it was still considered like it was owned by the father. Therefore, there's still patur from the kalboin. So me'ata, based on that, I feel cholku v'chazor v'nishtatfu. Let's say they divided everything, and then they came together and became partners. Chayavim b'maiser behema, because it's not considered that they're lekuchos. It's considered like it's one house. Uptur not kalboin, like one house. Taninan, in fact, that's how we learn chayavim b'kalboin uptur b'maiser behema. Rav Ba b'shem Abba Ravuna, he shnei achim sheyarshu saviyan. Same case is, let's say you have two brothers who inherited. And what if you had shnei gisen sheyarshu chamiyim? You have two brother-in-laws who inherited they had married two sisters. So the same halacha applies to them as well. What happened with these kablans? Who got this sort of tip? You would throw them in the box that collected the shkolim, and you'd continue to buy korbanos from them. No, it'd go to buy oilos. They would never keep the mizbeach empty. It's called Kitzam Mizbeach. They would always have animals around so that there would always be the Mizbeach burning with an oil. Rav Shimon Shazuri Oimer, Rikuz of Tzipula Besam Kodesh Kodoshim. These kalboinos would be used to cover the Kodesh Kodoshim on the inside with gold. No, the money changers would take it as their payment. You gotta, there's money that it costs money to transport the shkolim from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. So the kalboinos were used to pay for that. Now, I want to discuss Shabbos Sunday. Rabbi Krauss is learning in person. He's doing in-person Daf Yomi. So the question is, we are a couple of blot ahead. We can learn Friday morning. I would recommend we learn Friday morning at 8 o'clock. And I would recommend that we learn Monday night. So therefore, we end up not learning Shabbos and Sunday at all, but we're still on board because we're ahead of the game. Or we can learn Shabbos and Sunday wherever you guys want to learn.
We won't record then.
It won't be recorded. I understand, but that's okay.
Well, I like the first idea.
You like the first idea of not getting together Shabbos and Sunday. So what is the consensus of the group?
I don't know.
The problem is that the first on Monday night, what time does Yontif come out? 8 o'clock. What time does it come out?
No, I would learn 8:45 like we've been doing Motzei Shabbos. It's the same thing.
I'm out of town, so I'm just on Zoom Monday night.
Okay.
Well, that's if you're out of town. That's even
Harold
better.
also is out of town. So let's just do the Zoom. I think that seems we're not going to be behind, and then we'll have to figure. We'll try to get ahead again next week if we can, because we'll have this. Well, next week we only miss Shabbos. We only miss because we can learn Friday and we can learn Sunday night.
Or just tell everybody to learn a daf on their own over the weekend.
But we're ahead. For this weekend, it's not a problem. Maybe the following weekend, we'll see where we are. Okay. So Perek Beis. Mitzarfin shkolim l'darkonos b'nei masri aderech. So you collected all these machzis a shekel. You got these very heavy bags of coins, and you have to travel from far place to Eretz Yisrael. Are you allowed to change all of those half shekels into, let's say, one golden coin that in value is the same? Would you allow to do that? So the Mishnah says, yeah. You can exchange the coins for a much more valuable, smaller coin, which makes it easier for you to travel it. Okay. In the Beis HaMikdash, there were boxes, like tzedakah boxes.
Happy.
What was that?
Sorry.
Where people would put their machzis a shekel in. So this Mishnah is telling us that not only were there boxes in the Beis HaMikdash, there were boxes throughout the country in various places where people lived, and later on, those boxes were brought to the Beis HaMikdash. Then Bnei Yisrael Shalcho Sheklet. This is a very interesting. So people from a small town in the Galil, they gather together, they give the Machzis Hashem, they give it to a Shaliach, and the Shaliach is on his way to the Yerushalayim. V'nignavu or sha'avdu, and it got stolen. So the question is, who's responsible? Is it the moment they gave it to the Shaliach, it's as if the Beis HaMikdash had it already? And therefore, the people in the town are exempt from giving any more shkolim. Now again, there will be a diyun, there'll be a litigation between the treasurers of the Beis Hamikdash and the Shaliach as whether the Shaliach was negligent or not. And whether it's an oinus, did something happen that he couldn't prevent, or whether he was negligent. And then perhaps he would have to pay, okay? Or the other case. So it depends what kind of Shaliach is he. Is he doing it for free or is he being paid? Because remember, the level as a shomer of responsibility that you have depends on whether you're a shomer chinam or a shomer sachar, whether you're unpaid or you're paid. So we'll see that comes into play as well. The other thing that comes into play, says the Gemara, is im nitrama hatruma. So remember, we said 3 times a year, there was a big room where they had put all the shkalim. They would clear out that room and spend the money. So the question is, if there did in time the Gizborn do that yet? So if they hadn't, if it's before they cleaned it out, so then we hold it's as if it was not deposited the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore the townspeople would be required to give another shekel. And then the question was where does the shomer fit in? However, if the treasurers had cleaned it out already, so then the shaliach just has to litigate with the treasurers, right? Vim lav, if the treasurers had not cleaned it out yet, nishbon bnei ha'ir, the bnei ha'ir would be responsible to give another shekel. It's just the shaliach has to give an oath to the people of the city that he was not negligent. And then if he was not negligent, the bnei ha'ir give another one. Now, let's say they had given another one, and all of a sudden, the coins that the shaliach had lost was nimsu. He found it. Or shachzir magnovim, or let's say the thieves returned it. So, elu va'elu shkolim. The Beis Hamikdash benefits is they get a double payment. The payment that was originally made goes to them, and then the second payment that the people made also goes to them. And people of the town don't get credit for it next year. So the Beis Hamikdash really wins out. Their hand is on the upper, is on the upper. So the Gemara says, the Yasu Oisan Margolios. The Mishnah said a dark coin. A dark coin is a gold coin. So the Gemara wants to know, why don't you put it, Margolios is either pearls or other kind of fine stones. So those are even smaller than a gold coin. They make it easier. So why didn't the Mishnah advise us to do that? It was clear at the time of Chazal that coinage held its value more. It means even if there was inflation, maybe it was up 1%, 2%, but the value of the stone was a commodity, and it could go up 30% or down 30%. It was much more volatile. So they didn't want Hegdish to lose out in terms of value. And this is Ka'ida Tanina Tamon, like we learned. That let's say we know that if you designate a korban and it gets a mum, you have to redeem it. So you have to pay an extra 20%. You redeem it, you could use it, the animal you could shecht it, right? Same thing, like a bachor, kula niftin bekesef uveshava kesef. You could use money, or you could use value. You didn't have to use money. You could use, bushels of wheat.
By the way, Ernie, what the Gemara states about margolius and stones and gold, gold is immediate money. There's no problem. You always get money for gold. The problem with stones is that you never know what money you're going to get for them. So the Gemara was spot on.
Right. That means the coinage, currency was kept,
but especially gold, they changed the silver into gold even. So you see that the gold was the It was the
Was the key.
basic, the key.
Was the basic currency.
Right.
In Yana de Yoma, Elon Musk just started accepting Bitcoin, paying for Tesla. It's Margolius. Today.
I'm not sure Bitcoin is Margolius. I'm not sure what it is.
Maybe it's better.
Right.
So that means the value of Bitcoin probably went up.
It's $56,000, I think, a Bitcoin, right?
It dropped from 61 to 56. Terrible.
Yeah.
Pity that we don't own them still.
I lost billions if I would have bought it.
Yeah. Could have, should have, but I didn't. Okay.
Well, it was like 30,000 6 months ago, or I don't know, 20,000. Yeah, I mean, it was very low many years ago, but it's gone up since then. But question is, what is it? Okay.
It's a crypto,
Was?
crypto,
Right, cryptocurrency.
yeah.
So kula niftim bekesef shavi kesef chutz mishkolim. Shkolim can only be redeemed with or transferred value, not with shavi kesef, only with kesef. And ein pointing bekalim. You can't do it with vessels. For the reason is because the vessels will change their value and go down. So in our case as well, since the pearls could depreciate because they fluctuate in value, maybe there's not enough buyers all of a sudden or whatever, so Hegdish would lose out. Now, that which we said that there were multiple boxes in the base of Mikdash to put the shkolim in, and we said that there were also these boxes even in the towns that people lived in. That's only betiklin chaditin, shekels for the new year. Now, there were people who owed the shekel for the previous year. So that's called aval betiklin atikin lo. There were no boxes in the various towns. That box for the old shkolim was only in Yerushalayim. These boxes to put old shkolim that you owed for last year, that box was only in the base of Mikdash. Now, we went through this whole who has to take a shvuah, right? When the Mishnah said that if the coins were lost and the treasurers in Yerushalayim had not cleaned out that room yet, so we said the responsibility is on the Bnei Ha'ir, and we said the Shaliach has to take an oath to the Bnei Ha'ir that he was not negligent, and then they had to give another shekel. So the Gemara explains b'shomer chinam. Shomer chinam is pater b'gneva v'aveda. Mirz Hashem, we'll get to Baba Mitzia, and we will learn all the dinim of shomer chinam and shomer sachar. And one of the principles is that a shomer chinam is pater b'gneva v'aveda. Aval b'shomer sachar lo. A shomer sachar is chay b'gneva v'aveda. He's pater b'oinsin. If a boat sinks, some kind of accident that he's not out of control. Now, but shomer sachar is chay for gneva v'aveda. So then there's no shvuah there. There are situations where shomer sachar would also be pater, as long as he was not negligent. Those are cases of oinus. So, for example, you can have gneva b'oinus, for example, balistin mezuyin. An armed robber, you have no recourse, he's going to take the money from you. So that's an oinus. So even a shomer sachar there is pater. And avdu misha tovus vinos v'yom. So gneva v'aveda by shomer sachar, if it's some kind of oinsin, he would also be pater. But as long as he was not negligent in what he was supposed to do. So there also, the Gemara is pointing out that Rabab is pointing out that our Mishnah could be referring to a shomer sachar as well, not just a shomer chinam. Okay. Amar Rav Yossi ber Rav Simon, Asi command Amr terminal agovoi v'alosid legovois. So Rav Yusta is saying that our Mishnah is pasking like the one that when the treasurers empty out that room, they're already having in mind money that had been collected in the outside community, but still not in Yerushalayim yet. Therefore, once the Bnei Ha'ir give the coinage to the shaliach, it is already considered in the base of Mikdash's property. However, Baram command Omer ain't toimim lo lagavi v'lo lagavois. But according to the opinion that when they emptied out that room, it was only money that physically got there. Money that had been collected and is on its way is not part of it. So lo b'da. So that mandomer would not hold that they'd have to take their shvua to the gizbor in the base of Mikdash. They'd still have to take their gizbor to the Bnei Ha'ir, because until it actually arrives into that room, it's not considered as if it was collected by the treasurers. So the Mishnah said, so it depended on whether the treasurers had emptied that room or not. And if so, depending on the situation, the shaliach will take a shvua. But if it's considered that they already collected the money for the base of Mikdash, they would take the shvua to the base of Mikdash. On Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon he. Our Mishnah is clearly Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon Omer. When a person makes a, there's a different, you could say hare zu oila. If you point to an animal and you say hare zu oila. So there, when you were magdish something, it's considered without achrayus. There's no guarantee. You don't have to replace it if it gets lost, because you pointed to this animal, hare zu ola. If this particular animal got lost, you have no chiyuv to bring another one. On the other hand, if you said hare alai ola, it's a chefza versus gavra. If you put the chiyuv on yourself, so then if the animal got lost, you'd have to put another one. So therefore, it's like you owned it if you take that kind of shavua. Excuse me, if you take that kind of oath. That way, that's why the shaliach has to take a shavua, because it's considered like it was his. Once the Chacham who disagree with Rabbi Shimon hold that once you give it, it's given to the base of Mikdash. However, Amrav Yechon Divrei Akoli Mishum Shavus Takana. That this has nothing to do with ownership or not. The Chachamim made a rabbinic institution that you have to take a shvua. It's not that the Torah requires you to make this shvua. People will always try to get out of responsibility. So even though for Hegdish, normally it's not considered a personal asset. You wouldn't have to take a shvua if there's some kind of litigation. Here they made a shvua, even though it belongs to the base of Mikdash. And even the Chachamim agree, because it's not a deraisa shvua, it's a rabbinic shvua. Now, al daited Rabbi Yochanan Nicha. So this fits according to Rabbi Yochanan, who held that we said if it was Gneva or Veda, and the people in the base of Mikdash already emptied out the room, they take their shvua to the base of Mikdash. That's when Nishbon is born. But Vim Lav, and if they had not emptied out the room, Nishbon Uvnei Ha'ir. Uvnei Ha'ir Shek L'Machreim. Of course, they'd have to give it another Machzis HaShekel. And really, even though Minat Torah, you would not take a shvua based on something that had some connection to Hegdish, here you do, because Mishvua is Takana. El Rabbi Elazar, but according to Rabbi Elazar, Nishbon Uvnei Ha'ir. according who say that in some situations the shliach has to take a shvua to the people who gave the machzor shekel in the Galil. And he said it was the opinion of Rab Shimon. So nishbor lagizborim. Why? How would there ever be a situation that the shaliach would take an oath to the gizborim? If they haven't emptied out the room yet, it's the people who gave it originally that are responsible for it. Why should he take any kind of shvuah to the gizborim? So the Gemara says, the shvuah takes place that means the shaliach takes the shvuah to the bnei ha'ir while the treasurer is there. Otherwise, they might suspect that the bnei ha'ir never gave the machzor shekel. They want to hear the shvuah. Otherwise, the gizborim will consider the people posheya. They're negligent in how they're setting up the shkolim. Now, Rabbi Yochanan said, "Aval b'shekiblu bnei l'shalem," and even though the people have already understood that they're going to pay another machzor shekel because the first ones were lost, and technically they've already agreed to it. Why should the shaliach have to take another shvuah? And shvuah. There's a general rule. We're not going to let somebody get off not paying the Beis Hamikdash without taking a shvuah. Now, all these cases were where there was gneva veda. However, hifri shikla v'avad, not a shaliach. Person separated to one side one of his coins as a machzor shekel, and he lost it. Just because you separated in your home, that means nothing. You got to give it to the treasurer, then you're free. But Rish Lakish Amar, Hegdish B'Shus HaGavah B'chol Makom Shuhu. Rish Lakish asked Rabbi Yochanan, at home, if you separate this money and you say this is machzor shekel, it becomes part of the Hegdish wherever it is. And therefore, according to Rish Lakish, he wouldn't have to replace the machzor shekel that got lost. However, our mission is obviously pligal Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, because we said the Ishbon of Ne'ayir, if the money had gotten lost, the shvuah takes the shaliach takes an oath. Ne'ayir shortly tachten to give another. Now, if they've already given it, if he such as separates it in his house, it's considered by Rish Lakish that he already gave it. So certainly when he gave it over the shaliach, why should he have to give another one? La'odi mishum shvuah takana. Again, maybe because really in Torah there didn't need to be a shvuah. It was only instituted by Chachamim in order to make sure that people are careful with their machzor, because people didn't want to take shvuahs. Period. Tani. Harishonim noiflim letiklin chaditim. We said in a case where people gave the machzor shekel, they got lost, and they gave replacement shkolim to the Beis Hamikdash, and all of a sudden the shkolim were found. We said that both sets of shkolim are given to the Beis Hamikdash. Now, the initial ones that were given to the Beis Hamikdash are the regular ones that go for the New Year collection. But Vashniyim Noifel Tiklan Atikin, the ones that were found, are used for old shkolim, which are not used to buy korbanos. It's used for temple upkeep. Elu and Rishon of Elu and Rishon. What's considered the first and the second? Rav Pinchas Bey Rav Chiyav Rav Abba Mary Chad Amar Elu Shesholchu Bnei Tchila. The Rishonim are the ones that they sent first, that actually got to the Beis Hamikdash. The Charona Amar Elu Shegiyu Lidei Gizbor Tchila. No, not the one that they sent first, which could be the one that the Shliach lost, but actually the Rishonim are called the first ones that reach the hands of the Gizbor. Okay, mission. I give my machzor shekel to my friend to give it, put it in the box there in the stucco box of Beis Hamikdash. Ushkol de atzmo. He took that machzor shekel, he put it for himself. Im nistremu truma. Now, when he put the shekel in that box, and the Gizbor had already emptied out the box, so he's chayiv me'ila. Because he derived benefit from something that belonged to Hegdish. However, hashoikel shiklum in a Hegdish. What if you have money that you had already donated to the Beis Hamikdash? We already set aside, this money should belong to the Beis Hamikdash. And you gave the machzor shekel from money that was already Hegdish. V'nitrma truma v'karva behema. Let's say the Gizbor had already emptied out the chest and bought animals and actually gave him, offered on his mizbeach. Again, mal. Now, just because prior to the animal being offered on the mizbeach, by just offering the Beis Hamikdash money that was already hegdish, that wouldn't be meila. But once they offered the animal, some of that money sort of reverts like to chulin. Now, what about if he gave his machzor shekel for Meiser Sheni and B'nei Shvius, right? Let's say you transferred the kedusha of the grain you have to give for Meiser Sheni to money, and you use that money for machzor shekel, or because you sold some Shemitah product and it's B'nei Shvius, which you're allowed to do, but there are restrictions what you can do with that money. So Yochel Kenegdon, he has to eat fruits, the value of which, similar to that, you have to treat it with the same kedusha of Meiser Sheni. So Hashoikel, so Anantanin in Parva Moem, we learned if the behem had been offered, the Tanavei Rebbe im Nisrma Truma. One said, it seems to be two cases. Does both have to be done, or each can it be just? Is the trigger either Hakravas Abehema without Nitrima Truma, or you need both? So Mantan and Nitrima Truma, one it says that it's after the Gizbor had cleaned out that box. Rich Rab Shimon, Dam Rab Shimon Miyada, Yamakabel Moisov, that let's say the Beis Hamikdash needed to use flour or wine, and you're going to sell it to the Beis, but you have those commodities. So the Gizborim would pay them right away because they want to make sure nothing is going to become problematic. The kasha, however, there's a problem because ilu going to chavero. Let's say somebody stole a korban olah of his friend, shachto stam, and he shechted it, but we don't know with what kavanah he shechted it. Now, stam alol l'shem bala b'rishonim chaperes. Now, if usually a stam shchita is with the same mindset of the guy who originally owned the oila, and it should be mechaper him. So Amrav Yudin Tipot, you can answer b'mesuyim Yishel Beis Rabban Gamliel, that it was a special coin like Rabbi Gamliel used to do. It wasn't a typical coin And Shaya Miskavin v'dochel l'toch hakupa. And Gamliel would put in a way that the Gizber would notice. Because he would be concerned that this Maxis shekel is not going to be used to purchase the normal carbonos, but maybe it'll be used for what was used for the moiser. And the Chayesh Meila b'Shirayim, for most of the Chachamim, there's no Meila with that kind of extra money. So how did our Mishnah say there was Meila? So rather, our Mishnah must not be like Rab Shimon, but rather like Rab Meir. Rab Meir Oimer, Moyalim b'Shirayim. That if you have extra money, you can be Meila with that as well. And that would be even in the case of Rabbi Gamliel. So, manene, we said that, let's say one guy ended up paying a machzis, somebody was given a machzis shekel and use it for himself. Why should it, what me'ila did he do? What benefit did he do? He wanted to do a mitzvah, and there's no hanov, mitzvahs lav lanis nidnu. Remember, if you don't pay the machzis shekel, the Beis Din can collect collateral from you. And here he ends up paying, and he gets away from being collateralized by Chacham. That's a benefit. Then we said, Meiser Sheni. Let's say you gave Machzis shekel for Meiser Sheni money. So we say as well, you've got to eat fruits sort of for the same value. T'chsiv, ach b'chor Hashem v'kar l'Hashem b'vema, lo yagdish isho so. Anything that already has hekdesh, there's no second kedusha can fall on it. So what does he do? Maybe sell shel chulin. You take money of chulin. V'oimer, most ma'aser sheni b'chol mokum shein. My money of ma'aser sheni, wherever they are, yom chulon I'll sell a zoo. I'm going to transfer the kedusha on this coin. Also sella nispas shei ma'aser sheni. So it becomes like ma'aser sheni. V'ashar nasu shkolim. Therefore, you got rid of the any excess kedusha, the ma'aser sheni kedusha that was on the machzis shekel. Now you have a pure machzis shekel, and it should be only have the kedusha of machzis shekel. Okay.
Sure.
So
Danny?
tomorrow night.